Welcome back to Mindkind Podcasts. This is Dr. Jo North returning to our platform. Mindkind continues to be a reflective space for anyone who wants to stay sane in our demanding world. Our intention is to inspire, motivate, and inform people of all ages interested in mental health and well-being. I'll be drawing on 35 years of practice as a psychotherapist, and we'll be looking at research and therapy along the way and talking with other experts in the field so we can draw on their skill. If something affects the mind, we'll be talking about it. So let's get on with today's podcast. Jo here for our third Mindkind recording of this season. And this week I'm going to be talking to a very experienced psychotherapist, and I've been asking her, how can people get the best out of their psychotherapy sessions or their counselling sessions? So this is Alyss Thomas, and she's an accredited psychotherapist, and she's worked in the field for over 35 years. And in fact, I had the privilege of training with Alyss many years ago. And it's great for us to meet up and talk about how we can help people. We're both very interested in the democratisation of psychotherapy, and that is, we want everyone to understand aspects of mental health that affect them and how they can get their best life going and how to overcome obstacles. And it's for sure, as psychotherapists, our lives aren't perfect, and you will hear us talking about our own learning in this recording. We've both had big challenges in our lives, but that's okay. We're human. We're getting through like everybody else. So I will be interviewing Alyss and asking her, if someone comes into psychotherapy for the first time, how can they get the best out of this? We'll be looking at issues like unconscious material and what that means, finding your superpower, and how to get the best out of psychotherapy when you're feeling like you want to run away. What is projection? These old-fashioned Freudian terms that we use. We're talking about psychological mindedness and how to become more mindful of your own thinking. We talk about less blame and more self-responsibility. We're going to talk about communication and the quality of communication. And particularly, we're concerned about taking hostility out of talking with others so that we can come across well. And we're going to talk about what happens when you tell the truth, because sometimes we have to monitor the truth and tone it down a bit. We'll be talking about mirroring and generally the ability to reflect and set goals and engage in behaviors that are going to make a difference, reducing your reactivity and the role of compassion in your life. We want you to feel like you're going into sessions to get the very best out of it. This is Alyss, and Alyss and I have known each other for decades. She's a colleague of mine in psychotherapy and continues to work in the field of seeing clients. So we're going to talk to her today about client work because she's very invested in helping clients get the best out of their therapy. So, hi, Alyss.
Hello, lovely to see you again.
Yeah, you too. You tell me where you think you would be best to start to help clients using their sessions.
Well, I think a lot of people don't really know what to expect. I notice a lot of people come, they're scared and they're anxious and they feel that they've got to say the right thing. People don't necessarily realize that this is a space that's just for you, and it's to help you be more your best self and to feel better in your life. And there isn't a right way that you have to be. I think because that's so unusual, there is no other space really that is available in life where one person is holding space for your benefit and trying to hold that with positive regard for you and not critical of you. It doesn't mean there'll be no challenge, but it does mean that interested more in your best interests than in my best interests, you know.
Yes, and that's very, very different from an ordinary conversation. People interject and they want to tell you all about themselves, but in therapy you're saying is this unique space. Do you think that that is a bit terrifying for some people?
I think some people just don't know what to make of it, and you have to help them relax. Some people feel the onus is on them to somehow talk or perform or produce some sort of goods. You know, some people think that their job is to entertain me. They're terrified that I might be bored, you know, and it's very unusual to feel bored when you're listening to somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know about you, but I think the number of hours I've done is certainly up in the mid-teens in terms of thousands,
Mm.
and I never ever feel bored.
No, well, if one does feel bored, it's a form of countertransference,
Mm.
which is a form of information that about this person that is but very, very particular, which is something to investigate. I've,
Yeah.
otherwise, I would never feel bored because people
No.
are so delightfully interesting once you take off the top veneer of survival and coping, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're very privileged in that we spend time with people sort of with their emotional kind of clothes off. I mean, don't mean literally,
Mm.
but that they do not have to defend themselves or prove their worth or compete or, you know, prove anything. And so to be in a space like that can be quite discombobulating.
Absolutely. For us to train, we had to do lots of hours of therapy, and all I can remember is that I'm an entertainer. I really am. So I used to try and make my therapist laugh.
Okay. I mean, the thing is that it is fun. Have a laugh, isn't there? There's nothing wrong
Yeah,
with it.
yeah.
But hopefully the therapist will see under that and know that it's not just about that. Your role is not to entertain me.
No, absolutely. Well, sometimes making jokes is such a great defense in life, isn't it? I mean, it's just a brilliant social defense. And then underneath it all, you have to get real. Supposing then someone invests time in therapy and they've never had any before, what would you think you would advise them to think about?
I tend to think, you know, first of all, let's explore how you feel arriving. Just the whole process of just coming in the door and finding a seat and sitting down and shutting the door and all this, you know, finding somewhere for your coat, you know, and your shoes. People have strong feelings. And so it's like, can we just capture what it's like for you to come into this room and how you feel, rather than just push that away and try and get over it and get on with the real business? How you feel when you arrive is the real business.
Yeah.
And we need to be sensitive to what comes up for you. If you feel intimidated or scared or anxious or shut down, that gives me so much information that I can work with.
Yes.
So instead of trying to get rid of awkwardness and uncomfortableness, I actually want to investigate it. And so then people have to trust that I'm okay with that. I'm confident with that. You don't need to worry the awkward silence because no, we can manage it. You
Yes.
don't need to be scared of silence. Sometimes I just need a minute or two to think.
Yes, yes, of course. Silence is really challenging, isn't it? And one of the things that I have become interested in, Alice, is not only how people are when they come in, but how they are when they can't get in,
Yeah.
when it's hard to turn up. I always check in on people not turning up. It says a lot, really, doesn't it?
Well, I don't really have much of that, but that's because maybe I deal with older people than you do.
Mm,
So I don't get much of that.
mm.
So maybe for you that's more of a feature in your work because of the population you work with?
Yes, I mean, I usually genuinely find that if I reach out to people and say, "Oh, it's okay, but I'm still here and I'm still thinking of you and I still want to think with you," people
Mm.
just need to be reminded of that. They
Yeah,
they would think perhaps they were invisible and that it didn't matter, but it really, I think you're right. I have a different client group to you. I have a lot of young people.
yeah, and that's
Uh,
much common with younger people.
yeah.
So they're
Yeah.
less regulated in terms of time boundaries and things like that, you know, so that us
Yeah.
old people have been forced into it for so long.
That's so true. So you're saying, oh, it doesn't matter how you are when you come in the room.
Not at all. I'd rather you were just the way you are, and let's just be together as best we can. Try and make a human relationship and try and just be gentle and kind with one another, just to open up the space and see what is there.
And do you think that really in our work, we are very open that people would arrive in a complete and utter mess that people find it hard to believe they'd be accepted in a mess. We're not
Yeah,
very good with that, are we?
there's shame and guilt and,
Yeah.
fear of judgment. People often in the first sessions, as you know, they arrive in tears or confusion or,
Mm.
completely distraught, not knowing what to do, and
Mm.
usually they leave looking much more themselves again.
Yeah, that's a good thing to see, isn't it?
And I
What
think the other thing, in
mm,
relation to your first question, really about, what will help people through the process. I think I've honestly got to a place now where I ask my clients to take some notes of the work because I've noticed people just forget otherwise. To some extent, you enter an altered state when you're in a therapy session where you are more relaxed because you are supported. But when you go back into your everyday world, that state may not be very persistent. You may lose it. So I get people to take some notes and to write some reflections about the session afterwards. And that's work, kind of homework that I tend to set, or I might give them a little writing exercise to do about, what's the difference between you and your dad, or what's similar between you and your dad, to get them to think about something like that.
yeah.
Because I think it helps them focus on being part of the work. And it's not just about me doing something to you, it's us working together.
Yeah. So you kind of invested in getting people used to the idea that it's their brain working, it's their thoughts and feelings that are going to matter in the end. That
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Having access to them. There's this idea that some people have that the therapist somehow has got magic answers. Maybe we have, but mainly we have to find those magic answers are actually in you. They're not in me. They're in you. You've
yeah,
got your own magic answers, and somewhere within you, you do kind of probably have a feeling for what you would like to be different in your life and how what might make you more happy. And so it's like getting people to trust themselves more and get out of the loud, shouty, egoic, critical voices in their heads, with that nasty critical voice we all have. So I think learning to distinguish between that critical, self-destructive part of us and the more positive, gentle, happy part of us is very helpful. Because often the critical part is very loud and shouty. So I do a lot of helping people to recognize those different parts of themselves
yeah,
so
yeah,
they know which part they're in, and what they can trust. And also, cover this basic mindfulness techniques as well, because again, it doesn't seem to be taught in schools. And everybody needs some of those. That's some of those basics, just about being able to be present in your own body, listen to what you're feeling, be present in the moment and not scattered.
our brains are very scattered in this particular age. There's more opportunity than ever there used to be.
And also with the prevalence of people with ADHD and other kinds of neurodiverse kind of processes going on as well,
Yeah,
that having a clear focus about what we're going to be talking about, how we're going to be together, what the intention of the session is, all that's helpful, really.
mm, absolutely. I know that part of your thinking over the last 35 years has been you've been very involved in helping people to journal to access their thoughts.
Yeah.
And I know that you really are very interested in that. What tell us?
Well, I've found a way with that, because I did a lot of journaling myself when I was younger, and I found when I went back over my old journals, sort of, why didn't I write it in such a way so I could find it useful now? Because they were just like, could hardly read it, and there's no date, there's no topic. It's like just rambling. I developed a kind of methodology of how to make journaling useful in your life. And then when I researched into it, there's been a lot of research on journaling and related subjects such as gratitude journaling, things like that. It shows that it can be really helpful and really productive, but you need not to do that kind of splurging of negative feelings, which people tend to think that's journaling, and going on about how awful things are. It's more about focusing on what you want to focus on.
Yeah,
So, for example, there's something you want, then to imagine yourself in that situation and journal about how you feel and how it looks and what you like about it. Yeah, rather than journaling about how sad you feel that you haven't got it.
Yes. Yeah. Can you spend a few moments on how sad you feel that you haven't got it, but move out of it?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's all about the choice of focus, where you focus your attention. So it's about the focus, because that's one of our superpowers is our focus, and that is what's stolen away from us by modern life and social media.
Mm, I agree.
And actually, it is a powerful thing if you can claim it back and choose where to put your focus. And if you put your focus on something that you actually want rather than something
Mm,
you don't want,
mm.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
very constructive.
very, very. I think probably anything could happen.
Well, and also if you blend that with clear intention, determination, and then maybe some follow through, like maybe do some bullet journaling, follow through kind of approaches, and you've given yourself a structure from where you feel now to where you'd like to be. And that will only take you at the most a few months.
Yes. So in a way, your approach has been encouraging people to create better lives.
Yeah. And make the best of what you have got as a way of leveraging your strengths. And then in therapy, we can also work with what is bugging you and where you feel, very vulnerable and upset.
Yes.
That's more for the in the moment in the therapeutic relationship where that's held,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
rather than when you're by yourself.
Yeah. There's a lot of different levels that the therapist is working at
Mm,
when they're working with a client, and I guess it does take many years to get those skills together. But it sounds like you give your clients a big space. There's big possibilities in your mental space
yeah.
that you can open up for people.
Well, everyone has so much potential that's not tapped. Because I feel passionately that the education system and the family conditioning system that most people in our society have grown up through has done them no favors, and they've been suppressed, oppressed, overly controlled. Their talents haven't been even revealed to them or not drawn out. They have very low aspirations for what they could expect. And they keep entering relationships where old childhood issues keep on repeating in a very painful way. And they don't seem to be able to break out of those cycles of, you know, disappointment and letdown. And that is nobody's fault. That is how our society has become. And so I feel pretty strongly that therapy is a place where you can heal from some of that at least.
Mm.
You can
Yeah.
find a way to be more yourself again. And
Yeah.
what better thing is there than to be happily you?
Yes.
Everything
Yes.
else is taken, but you can be you.
Yes, I completely agree. I don't know about you, Alice, but I can draw on lots of examples of how people have transformed their lives, and certainly how I've done that. And I know, we know a bit about each other's lives, how we've transformed aspects of our lives, which are incredibly, we've learned the hard way. But also, those transformations and those changes, they can be the most tiny, beautiful steps. They don't have to great, but you don't have to sort of like suddenly start driving a Lamborghini to be successful, do you? It's about feeling a beautiful moment, or having more joy or something, or
And this is about just getting started. If you really have your heart set on a Lamborghini, then take some driving lessons, just begin the process.
mm,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know why I thought that. I never actually wanted a Lamborghini, actually, but I was thinking, for my own example would have been I wanted to write the most recent book I wrote, and the only way I could do it, because as you know, I see a lot of clients, which was my great joy in life. But the only way I could do it was get up early and do an hour every morning, and it took me 3 years to write that book, but I've done it,
Yeah.
because I kind of pulled it together, you know.
But because you know that you can,
Yeah.
and that precious self-belief, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
You weren't given that as a child, yeah? You had to earn that
Yeah.
and prove that to
Yeah.
yourself,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's true. Yeah.
And therapy has offered such a gift like that, that
Yeah.
you have the ability to turn yourself into who you truly are.
Yeah.
You didn't know you were a writer when you were 20, did you? You know?
No. No, I totally didn't. You're right. I absolutely nobody else did either.
But that was always in you,
It was there. Yeah.
yeah, but when you find more self-belief, more confidence, these things start to come to the surface and you start to feel, I will do it. I will do it. I absolutely will do it. Even if
Yeah.
it's got to get up at 5 every morning, I'm still going to do it because I really
Yeah.
want that prize, you know, I
Yeah.
want that sense of achievement. I want to express what's in my heart.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so journaling you think's a great way forward. No, it's not for everybody. Some people
Yeah.
may find another way to be in touch with themselves and
I mean, it doesn't matter what you use really. Some people use a more physical approach, such as, you know, martial arts or, you know, running, whatever you want to do, it doesn't really
yeah.
but something about being mindfully present. And so journaling's like being mindful with a pen in your hand or pencil, you know,
Mm,
and something about that mind-body link
mm,
through handwriting does help you to realize things more clearly and see them more clearly. And I find it really helpful for when you've got a process that is semi-conscious or unconscious, you know, like for example, if someone's having panic attacks, for example, if they make sure they write down what triggered that panic attack and the feelings that it had when it first started or just before it started, that's really useful information because we can start to see what thought you're having that's actually triggering those symptoms.
mm,
That's
mm.
catching those unconscious, subconscious thoughts and beliefs and assumptions which are actually triggering you.
Yes.
And I don't know how you can capture that if you're not writing it down.
Yeah, you might see it symbolically, mightn't you? Not realize that you're seeing it. Do you think? For example, the other week I went to an art gallery and I looked at a picture and I was so utterly transfixed by this beautiful picture. And
Mm,
I didn't know what it was that transfixed me, but it was clearly something.
mm,
And that I took a photo in the end and brought it away with me. And I think sometimes you can see a picture that will grab your interest, and I think it's really important to pay attention to those times. what
mm.
what are you drawn to, can be helpful.
And you don't necessarily know what that is. There's something about that painting that mystified you, but
Yeah.
you know, there's something in it for you, which is really important to explore what feeling it gave you, what it was about it that fascinated you.
Do you think that some people might come into therapy though with confused ideas? For example, I mean, you and I talk about conscious and unconscious quite happily, you know. Do you think for some people that's a little bit of a mysterious thing that might not be so? How would you help people
So
understand?
I feel my role some of the time, and not all therapists would agree with me, but I
Mm,
feel that some psychoeducation is needed.
mm,
Yeah, and so I will, when it's relevant and when it's helpful and in appropriate language for the kind of work we're doing, talk about conscious and unconscious, for
mm,
example, and
mm.
what that means. Yeah, that you know, a large percentage of what we do and think is not really conscious, and so we're
Yeah,
operating on two different levels, at least two different levels. So that's why, you know, you say I'm going to go on a diet, and then tomorrow you buy a large chunk of chocolate cake. There's how come? Yeah. So the part of you that reached out and grabbed that chocolate cake is not the same part that said I'm going to go on a diet. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, that's a good example, isn't it? Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so what are these different parts? Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a good example of helping people understand the
Yeah.
unconscious aspects of self. And you know what continues to amaze me is how much of us is driven unconsciously. I mean, that it continues to bug me and amaze me that we there's so much of our lives where we just need to learn to float on through because there are, organic forces, circadian rhythms, and impact of, say, world events or economic events, and that will impact on us and encroach on us.
Well, there's so many different layers. I mean, there's the autonomic nervous system, which obviously, continues to make your body function. You don't have to think about it,
No.
You don't have to think about how your heart is pumping and and your endocrine organs are operating and everything's happening. You can just get on with chocolate cake.
Yeah. 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 But that's a good example of unconscious, isn't it? Your heart's beating away. You don't actually know it's there, so you're not conscious of it at
We
all.
don't need to know because that's just the autonomic, automatic body systems.
Yeah.
But what we do need to know is the unconscious thoughts that get in the way,
Mm.
that make your life go pear-shaped or that make
Yeah.
you unhappy. So if you're feeling persistently unhappy, I love my husband, but I want to leave him because he makes me miserable. There's something, I mean, how many times have you heard that? I love this person, I want to stay with them. I hate this person, they make me miserable. Like,
Yeah.
and they're both
Yeah.
do. How do we deal with that?
Yeah. That's our little challenge in life, isn't it? That we have that kind of challenge.
Yeah.
I think that's true of most relationships, don't you? That you both have positive regard, and at the same time, a person might drive you bonkers, and that's one of the challenges of being human.
Well, it's learning about what in you gets triggered that makes you feel like you've gone bonkers. That you really is not about the other person, it's about your reactivity to that person.
Yeah.
And that shows you something about your own consciousness, which perhaps you didn't realize because
Yeah.
it's projected, because we have the mechanism of projection that we project onto other people, the aspects of ourselves that we don't want or can't contain.
I think that's really important, isn't it? That's
Uh,
a very um, old Freudian term. And so, can you tell us a little bit more about that? What you do with that mechanism? How would you say? Could you give an example of how you would see that?
I mean, really, you have anyone coming in complaining about somebody else. Yeah.
Mm, mm,
So, what is it about that person? Yeah. That winds you up. How does that make you feel? So, I'm more interested in how that makes them feel. And then the feeling that that elicits is something that we can work with.
yeah,
That feeling is something that you don't want. You want to blame that other person for it. So we want to get onto the idea that blame is unhelpful, it's not psychologically skillful
mm,
judgment, that you need to do this thing that we call taking back your projections, which is saying that if I project something onto you, it's a piece of me. Yeah.
yeah,
So if I say, oh, I don't like people who wear, rimless glasses, there's something wrong with them,
yeah.
that's entirely to do with me, isn't it? It has nothing to do with the people that wear rimless glasses.
No,
Nothing at all.
yeah. So really, you're encouraging people to just be more aware of their own reactions, their own reactivity, and their own to manage themselves better.
Kind of can be absolutely eye-opening to realize that the feelings you have about your husband aren't really caused by your husband. Yeah. You married somebody who reminds you of your mother.
Yes, yes. Or at least, or yeah, or that maybe you need to talk to your husband about, how you can work together to manage a situation. Because I do find, I mean, I suppose ultimately that what therapy does is help people be more open in their communication.
Mm.
I mean, that's one of my, and I know, we've gone down different roads in our work, but I think one of mine is helping people to communicate in order to resolve problems.
Yeah, and it's everything, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And in a way, therapy models that. People come in and they say, well, I've got this problem. Oh, I think, oh, that's a good start to communicate that you're struggling.
And so, like, if you've got, a couple in the room, say, and then you model speaking to say the husband in a kind and respectful way, which the wife never speaks to her husband like that, then she'll be quite shocked to hear that you
Yeah.
think it's okay, and that if we always speak to one another in a respectful and kind way, we're going to get a better result.
It's so true, isn't it? And I think that's such a powerful point. And I think that if there's one thing that I've learned aside from communication. It's how we communicate, isn't it? You can say one sentence, and if you say it with intention, and even I'll use the word and sort of say you say it with respect and love to someone, you probably get a better result than if you say it disrespectfully. And as I'm always teaching kids like that. I'm always saying, well, it's okay that someone makes you annoyed, but let's deal with that respectfully.
Not just chuck it straight back at the person.
No.
Create more, is make a nasty ball of nastiness by the more you add to it by chucking it back.
Well, you're exactly right. And we mirror each other, don't we? And I know that, I think about 86% of our communication is in tone of voice. And I think if there's one thing I have done, it is literally work at delivery. I don't know about you, As, but I find, sometimes you have to really give people some really tough things to think of. Let's think about something a little bit difficult here, And my goodness, you have to get the delivery of that well.
You'd be very skillful and subtle and have good timing. Yeah.
Yeah.
That does,
Yeah.
many years in the saddle, doesn't it? That
Yeah.
you've got your hands on you've got your kind of hands on the reins of it. You can feel your way at what can this person tolerate.
Yes.
So you don't want to get into direct criticism, but you do want to challenge. And how can you find a place between criticism, challenge, and just indulging, which we don't really want to do?
Yeah.
But be kind and truthful. That's a real skill, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's not easy to do.
It's not easy to do. And I think that I bet you've got really good at it. And I certainly have worked at it. Is that like, how do we just challenge unproductive patterns of behavior? Now, I don't know if you recall, but a long time ago, therapeutic challenge was quite brutal to people.
Yes,
It could be quite.
Fritz Perls,
Yeah, Fritz Perls. He used to shout bullshit to people, and he said kinds. And if we said that these days, I think we'd probably lose our license to practice. But he used to sit in front of people and smoke a cigarette, and if they said something that of which he disapproved, he'd just shout bullshit at them. I mean, seriously, what kind of
Well, I think it paved the way for authenticity. Remember, there wasn't such a thing as authenticity until maybe the 50s or 60s.
Yeah. Okay.
Authenticity highly, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously, when authenticity first appeared, it was pretty crude.
Yes. That's very true, isn't it?
Okay.
So, and do you remember a time when I don't know about you, but I used to be a truth junkie.
But that can be so hurtful, to tell the
It
truth.
can be the worst thing if you want to have a bad time. You be that person. I mean, and just to explain that, because I bet we've got some really young people listening, and I expect they're thinking, what are those old ladies talking about? But what we found so much energy in being truthful, that so much energy in being personally honest. So I think it's absolutely fine to be personally honest in yourself.
But authenticity and congruence are empowering, aren't they?
Yeah.
But you do not want to create subsidiary damage in the process.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So, I hate your hair. How does that help anything?
Yeah. Absolutely. That sort of, we had to learn that didn't work. That's the sort of thing a child might do. It's the sort of thing my 5-year-old grandchild would say to me.
And that's fine. It doesn't. You're not going to take it personally from a
No.
grandchild. You appreciate the fact that they've been brought up in such a situation where they're not afraid to say the truth, and that's helpful, and they can learn, through life how to modulate that. It takes time to learn that. Yeah.
Sure, exactly. But I certainly went through a phase where I clearly hadn't learnt it in childhood, so I was practicing it in my mid-20s, and I'm afraid there were a lot of casualties on the way because of that. But anyway, what else would you like new clients to know about, Alyss? Is there anything else that you think would be helpful?
the idea of mirroring is an interesting idea that you just mentioned just now. The idea
Yeah.
of, as part of what we're doing as a therapist is sitting and watching and being present and just looking at and witnessing a client. So maybe some people might consider that to be some kind of terrible scrutiny, but there's such a thing as mirroring, that what we're trying to do is see the real person,
Mm.
trying to really see and understand and meet who this person truly is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Offer reflections about that, which are, and that can be very empowering. See just how sensitive you are, and how courageous you are in that situation. They didn't even realize they're being courageous, but they were.
Yes. Yes. I think that's so powerful. The people, it's so healing to be seen,
Yes. Yeah,
isn't it? To,
very, very much. Yeah.
yeah.
So a lot of therapy can be about that, especially where a client didn't have a family where they felt very attuned to, or very met or understood.
Mm.
Many people, it takes a long time just to allow themselves to be seen and to relax into that can be a positive experience. And
Yeah.
that in itself is therapeutic, and nothing much actually has to happen as such, except that you've got to allow yourself to be seen and to receive those reflections and to take them
Mm.
in a new way. So you can make a new kind of mental pathway to receive that kind of more affirmative feedback.
Yes. I think that's true. Yeah. And if I were to throw in another piece, I think that there's such simple things that people can do to take good care that will make a massive difference. And I think A for a start talking, but B is to every day take care of yourself. And I think that's one thing that's been part of my journey as a therapist, but that I see in other people's journeys. And I meet, and I don't know about you, Alice, and I'd really like to know, but I meet people in such pain, such emotional pain, and it's really hard to get them to think about taking really good care of themselves, that might start to be something that turns things around. Where are you with that?
It's a really important subject, because I certainly neglected myself quite a lot in my earlier life,
Mm.
because I didn't think that was a thing.
Yeah.
So, just get on, do all the things that you need to do, but don't worry about the person that's doing it, because you're not important. That's what I was raised, isn't it? You're not important. The thing needs to be done.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah,
So
yeah,
you get over that. I think there's something deeper underneath all of that, which is about true self-love. Because if you actually love yourself, then you'll care for yourself. But otherwise, you're just going through the motions.
yeah,
I think self-love is something really important, but we can't make that happen. You have to go slowly. And I think maybe bringing the subject of love into therapy, like, maybe it's a taboo subject that we love our clients, but we do. But it's a detached love. It's a compassionate kind of love. It's not over involved. It's not codependent love. It's not expectation. It's not control. It's not worry.
and it's not going to, you're not asking for it back
No.
either. I think it has to be a very much. I mean, we're. I mean, a lot of what we trained to think about was a compassion focus.
Mm,
I think that perhaps that's what we're going on to here, and how powerful it is to be compassionate
mm.
to yourself and to others.
I find so many people mix up compassion and empathy, though.
Okay.
So,
Tell it, define that for us.
like, and people doing counselling and therapy trainings, everyone's taught to be empathic, and then a lot of people grow up very empathic because they are empaths, because they've learned to
Mm.
be vigilant to the feelings of everyone around them. As if they don't watch out what's coming, they've got to deal with that situation quickly. So a lot of people are very overly empathic to other people,
Yes,
not paying enough attention to themselves. Whereas
definitely.
compassion is something that I think is a deep human quality that just arises spontaneously when you witness suffering, but you're not responsible for it. You know,
Yeah.
whereas with empathy, people tend to feel more responsible.
I think there's a lot of learning in that, in that those ideas.
Yeah.
And we've only got a few minutes left now, but I suppose it seems that here we are. We met each other and we were learning to be psychotherapists, and here we are, all these years down the road, and we're still. I don't know about you, but I'm still learning.
I'm doing a new training in a couple of weeks. Yeah.
You are.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are you doing?
I'm trained as a mediator. So
Oh, wow. That's exciting. Yeah.
mm,
That's a wonderful thing to do.
because I think, working with conflict is so much for our times, isn't it? We have to
Yeah.
get along with one another, and nobody agrees with anyone about anything.
Yeah, that will be exciting. And I know that over time you've done so much training, and we both have. A lot of my training at the moment is around working with violence and reducing violence. So we're both actually in the same place, but with different models of working.
Yeah. So I guess you're doing non-violent communication. Yeah.
Yeah, non-violent resistance
Mm.
work and non-violent communication, and just reducing reactivity, which is basically the challenge of our time. Post-COVID, I think there's a lot more people, a lot more frustrated and find life difficult.
Yeah. And so, but there are tools we can put in their hands.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're both still wanting to do it. Okay, Alyss, thank you so much. Final word. What final word would you say to any clients out there?
Find a therapist that you like and trust them with your life, but make sure
Yeah,
they're ethical and safe, and then absolutely trust the process and
yeah,
one way.
yeah. Get in there and do the work and learn to make your life better. Yeah,
Yeah, you
yeah.
have the right to be happy. Yeah.
You have the right to be happy. That's a great ending. So thanks to Alyss for her time in telling us about how to get the best out of sessions. If you take something away, I would say the following might be very useful. Find a therapist that you feel you really can connect with and get along with, and who will support you. And it's okay if you don't get along with your therapist, you might need to change. Start taking really good care of yourself in your life. If you can't afford a therapist, that's a great beginning for you. Don't forget you have the right to be happy and to increase your happiness, but you might find times when you don't feel extremely happy, and that's okay too. We have to live with feelings and emotions, and therapy is a great place to explore feelings and emotions and thoughts that you might never have the opportunity to do in ordinary life. Don't forget, therapy is a non judgmental opportunity where you have a lot of space to learn to be you and learn more about you and how to live your best life. I hope today's recording has helped you, and I'm looking forward to our next meeting. Look out for what's happening next. Thank you for listening. Check out the next episode on our platform. Don't forget, I'm a doctor of psychotherapy, not medicine or clinical psychology. My expertise lies in the field of applied psychology through psychotherapeutic models of practice. This podcast is not intended for diagnosis or treatment of any kind. If you are concerned about your mental health, do consult your doctor, who will guide you. If you are ever in a mental health crisis within the UK, dial 999. In all other parts of the world, check your mental health facilities or turn to someone who will support you.